So hi, thanks for dialing in and watching Efficient GitOps with GitLab and Flux. So my name is Alex Das. If you have any questions to the talk, please comment or ideally just like tag me at Alex-Das on GitLab. I'm a solution engineer here at GitLab, and I discovered that there's a lot of interest about the integrations we're building currently with Flux. I gave the talk about GitOps on the DevOps Con in Munich, and yeah, kind of the response made me emphasize and feeling to make this video. So I'm quickly going through what we're going to discuss. I will put in time codes in the video below, so you don't need to watch a section which you're not interested in. So that means like we start with the basics. If you want to skip it, just go to the time code. But then we will have hands-on a look about like bootstrapping Flux for GitLab. How does that look like? And then deploying the GitLab agent for Kubernetes, leveraging our Flux, which is then already integrated with GitLab. And we're going to deploy a Kubernetes apps with the GitOps approach. I'm going to show you even more how we're going to tackle the integrations, the deeper integrations between GitOps deployments and GitLab. So for example, the Kubernetes dashboard or our first feature, which is there for the immediate reconciliation triggered when a deployment did happen. So what is GitOps? In general, GitOps, it's just a modern approach for automating and managing infrastructure as well as applications, right? So there was more a focus on to managing infrastructure, which I will talk a little bit on the next slide. But the common thing here is like we're using Git as the single source of truth. So we're applying DevOps principles or best practices if you want. So Git-based workflows to ensure governance and control. And we're making those changes which are made to our repository automatically to our application. So why are companies so interested into that? We're enhancing collaboration with that. So that means that your application team can probably look into the repository, how your cluster is configured, and make a merge request, make a suggestion to an improvement, and the other way around as well. Then consistency. So everything is version controlled. So in case you mess something up, like I did for my demo when I went by train to the DevOps Con, I just like messed up the demo, and I was easily able to just revert it kind of like 15 minutes before showtime, without rush, just like attacked the point in the code. I just like reverted it. Everything was good. Then, of course, security and compliance. So you can put all the guardrails which you're putting to your normal development processes, reviewers, code owners. You can apply that to the files and to the code which you're storing there. And then automation. Definitely. So automation is key here because due to the fact that things are not manually applied to your cluster and to your infrastructure, things need to be automated, and therefore things are becoming more efficient. Let's have a look quickly onto the different ways of GitOps, because GitOps is not GitOps. So let's make sure that we're talking about the common thing. So there's push-based GitOps, which is very well known for all kinds of environments. So if you're doing Kubernetes deployments, if you're probably using GitLab to do that, then this is a push-based approach. So that means your CI runs and it pushes some changes out. Can be done with GitLab as well. It can be done with the GitLab agent for Kubernetes, where you build a Helm release and you push it out to your cluster. So it works for all kind of infrastructure components and for Kubernetes. Well, the pull-based approach is becoming more and more famous because it's lightweight. It just like does drift management. So it just changes the things which are actually changed in the application, not rolling out everything new. But it's primarily for Kubernetes environments. And we chose to leverage Flux for that integration because it offers a rich integrations as well, and it allows us to build more and more integrations to really make a good and valuable integration with GitLab here. So I'm going to show you the components so we can be sure about what we're talking about, like GitLab and our Kubernetes cluster. So on GitLab, what you're seeing is that there will be a Flux bootstrap. So we're going to Bootstrap Flux, that it leverages a Git repository and it can interact. So it will store all the changes into the Git repository. And then we have the server-side components here of the agent component. So the agent is really kind of like the foundational layer of your cluster connection. So that's when you connect the Kubernetes cluster with GitLab in order to do operational container scanning. So this is kind of a security component, but way more, which I will elaborate a little bit later in that talk. And therefore, the agent is still a very, very important component and it will stay there, right? That's why I wanted to show that. So both important components here. And on your cluster, what we're seeing is that on the Kubernetes cluster, so the Flux controllers, the actual controllers will run there. And so we are now here in GitLab and we're going to bootstrap Flux to interact with our GitLab repository. So the first thing you should do is creating an access token. I recommend not using your personal access token, but creating an access token here on the group level or on the project level to make it secure that this access token can only interact with that particular repository. So even that I've done the bootstrap here, so to update GitLab and Flux, it is not a problem to just like simply rerun that. And I'm just going to walk you through the settings quickly so it makes perfect sense. So you see that we're currently here in my group, which is ADAS demos, demo, GitOps, and the Flux, which is the repository. So therefore, I've set the group here as an owner, the repository, which is called Flux. So I'm in that repository, but during the initial bootstrap, this was created. So this repository was automatically created. I'm setting up a branch, which is the default branch to monitor, and I'm defining a path, which is the default path to my cluster configuration, and the namespace where the components will be installed on my Kubernetes cluster. So I can have a look at the components now here. So, and I see that, yep. So you see that basically everything is up and running. So all our components of Flux are up and running. So let's go right in here and let's do good GitOps practices, and let's have a look on how can we install the GitLab agent, which I talked before, with our GitOps approach already. So for the sake of easiness, I'm going to use our web IDE here, and I'm just going in the configuration into Flux system. And what you find here is basically the bootstrap configuration. So the initial bootstrap configuration, which basically says, okay, all components which reside into clusters and GKE will be synced to this cluster. Okay, so, and that makes it very easy for us to create resources here, which will be automatically applied to our cluster. And what you need to install the GitLab agent for Kubernetes is, a namespace, obviously. So I created a file here with the namespace, which is just defining the namespace GitLab. And I created a agentk.yaml, which is not specifying a YAML file, but it's specifying a Helm repository directly in here. So you'll just like find that into the documentation and you can copy paste it. But just like pushing these changes will be applied by Flux to our cluster. So, and if I go in here now and do like kget pods minus namespace GitLab, for example, then we'll see that our agent here is actually running. So it has two pods for redundancy, which are running here. And what else can I see? So that now we integrated the GitLab agent for Kubernetes. So I can go to operate and I can go to Kubernetes clusters. And you'll see that we have the connection status here of my agent of Flux, which is connected, and it has an agent configuration file. So this is how you can configure the GitLab agent for Kubernetes in here. And what we define here, for example, is that, okay, there is CI access. So push-based access will be possible for all projects here in ADAS demos. And that's kind of a beautiful approach because we have our GitOps engine configuration repository, which configures not only Flux, but which also takes care about maintaining, updating the GitLab agent for Kubernetes, as well as configuring the GitLab agent for Kubernetes. Okay, let's go to our application and let's have a look how we can deploy our application and how that works. So I'm here in my GitWeb GitOps repository. This is a simple Go application which builds a container image and creates the manifests into a given folder. For the sake of easiness, I'm just going to the web IDE now and making a small change into my file here. Okay, so let's just go. This is very old. I don't know. Let's just bump the Docker version, for example. So we're having a change in here, and let's just go to my template index, and let's just change the color here a little bit. So off my front page, make it more black. Okay, this one as well. Okay, I don't even know how that resides. Okay, so we have some changes, and let's just kick them off. So change background. Okay, and we will commit them to main. As you can see, my pipeline has no run. It did container scanning, it did a dependency scanning of the Go application and execute the unit tests. As the last step, it did run the stage GitOps and committed the manifests. It's simply using my bot user to commit the updated manifests, which have been generated by Customize. So that's a tool I'm using to generate those manifests. And as a minute ago, so this is our Kubernetes deployment here in prod, which points to the new image we uploaded to the container registry. I want to switch back to our infrastructure repository to show you how this is configured to apply the changes from the other repository. I'm going in here, and you'll see that I have a namespace which is statically created. I have defined a Git repository within Flux, which is my application repository here, with the branch main to trigger the sync here. So there you see the manifest path, a longer sync interval to have API calls. All of that just happened a minute ago. That means by just having no integration between GitLab and Flux, so my changes would not be visible right now in here. Let's go to our environments, and I have defined my production environment already in here. Opening my production environment, I see that this was updated 3 minutes ago, and I'm having as well a Kubernetes overview directly within GitLab here, which says, no, this is healthy, this is fully synced, the sync status is reconciled. Even if the default interval was set to 5 minutes and it's now around like 3 minutes deployed, the reconciliation happened already. And this is because when the GitLab agent for Kubernetes is running onto the cluster and it detects that there is a change of a resource which is monitored by Flux, it creates a receiver and it tells Flux proactively to update and to reconcile this manifests. So, and therefore we see that this is already reconciled. Without that, I would not have the immediate feedback. I would not see the resources here directly in GitLab and know that my deployment is successful already. So quickly recap what we've done. So we deployed this GitWeb application the GitOps way, and let's have a look how exactly that worked. So we pushed some application code, which was changed some color into the GitWeb GitOps repository. So then our CI pipeline did run, it did execute security scanning, it did do unit testing and secret detection, and push our container image to the internal GitLab container registry. So then it was as well pushing the manifest files which have been created for the updated application to our application repository or folder in our case. So now even the normal sync interval, what we've seen, was configured to 5 minutes. So And we saw that the application was updated way quicker. So we had a look after 3 minutes, but it was kind of like updated right after the deployment. And why was that? Because we have the integration here between the agent and Flux. Therefore, the agent, the server-side component, detected that there was a push to a monitored Flux resource and did notify Flux via a receiver to do an immediate reconciliation of the repository. And therefore, we've been able to access our application site prod.catweb.gitops.fun, which you can do now as well. I hope you enjoyed that video. I hope I could make the integration between GitLab and Flux clearer for you to get you started. I know it's a very important topic for a lot of companies, and I want to let you know that this is only the start. So we are working on way more and tighter integrations here. So you've seen the Kubernetes dashboard in the beta already, for example, but we're working on a direct pipeline integration. So you get feedback immediately into your pipeline when a deployment is finished. So meaning that even the resources on the Kubernetes cluster are fully reconciled. So to track that, I will put you the related issues in the description, and we always want to hear your feedback. So please give your feedback if you're using GitLab with Flux already, or if you're having feedback after trying that out. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.